Hi guys, and welcome to the Gameweek 6 podcast of Z Talks FPL. Great to be back. I'm recording this on a Monday morning. Uh, I hope you guys had a good Game Week 5. I had a good Game Week. Went with a few, I would say, mainly the captaincy decision. I went against the crowd. As you would know if you follow my content. I was considering Bruno a lot for captaincy last week, but ended up going for Haaland. But not much of a difference in that sense. I think had I captained Bruno, I would have ended up with 20 points. Haaland got me 18, so that's good. So just to do a quick review, I ended up with 76 points, made one transfer. So I took Neto out for Caicedo. Neto was taken off in the United game, quite early, so he just got a one pointer. Caicedo comes in, gets me the DefCon points. That's a very steady 4 pointer, so I'll take that. That was the thinking with Caicedo. Yeah, so no hits this week. 76 points. That's a very good score. Because I just looked at the scores on Twitter, and I think most people, on an average, got somewhere between 40 to 50. So this was a good week to have a good week, if you know what I mean, right? So that was that was one part of the story. And yeah, just before we proceed, if you are a regular listener, you can see the beard is gone. So because I'm recording and I can constantly see myself, I feel very weird as well. I just had a trimming accident where I was just talking to my wife while just shaping my beard, and woof, a part of a mustache goes away. So I had no choice but to just take it off. It's funny. I'll have to wait for a week for the beard to come back. But yeah, it's a little weird looking at myself this way. But the hair is still there, so not all is lost. So yeah, well, if you like me for my beard, I'm sorry, the beard is gone for a while. You'll have to wait for a week's time till it comes back. And it's weird recording this, looking at myself. I mean, I look at myself in the mirror, and yeah, I'm not used to it. I've had my beard for like years now. I think 8-10 years. Like, I'm 30 right now. I had my beard till when I was around like 16, 17. Right, I had it quite young. I don't remember taking it off more than once since then. So definitely a weird feeling. The chin feels very small, but it is what it is. Back to FPL. So yeah, 76 points in game week 5. Very happy with the team. I actually played Dubravka over Petrovic. I just thought that both Bournemouth and Burnley will end up conceding, and I just fancied Dubravka to get some more safe points. So that was the thinking. But in the end, it really didn't matter much. Petrovic got like a 6 points, but he didn't get any save point at all. On the other hand, Dubravka, even though he did not keep the clean sheet, he ended up getting uh, a few save points. So he ended up on 4 points as well. So that's very good. I'm happy with that decision, because had Burnley ended up keeping the clean sheet, he would have probably ended up with 8 to 10 points. I think maybe nine or 10 points at least, because he would have got those clean sheet points, and with the kind of saves that he was making, he would have also ended up with some bonus points. But yeah, 4 points is not bad. Very happy with that. Not much in terms of Van de Ven. I thought it was always going to be a tricky game. Spurs conceded 2 goals. Van de Ven did not look like he's ever going to score. So one pointer, but listen, he cannot score goals every week. Spurs will not keep clean sheets every week, so that's fine. Not much lost over there. My two DefCon monsters, Van Dijk and Senesi, so happy to have them in their team. In my team, Senesi was terrific once again. He got his DefCon points, and he got a bonus as well. So you know, if you go back to last season, for example, the old FPL, for a defender to get 9 points, he would have to keep a clean sheet and at least get an assist. But now things are different because DEFCON is a thing. So he gets a clean sheet, gets the two DEFCON points, gets a bonus, steady 9 pointer. That's terrific. Really happy with that. Same with Van Dijk. Didn't keep a clean sheet, but it was very funny because Van Dijk, I think he was stuck on nine defensive contribution for the longest of times. And I was just chatting with some of my friends on the group chat, right? And we were just we had lost all hope. And right at the end, I think it was an Everton free kick that went into the box, and then it was cleared, and there comes Van Dijk, just thumping it with his, it was a headed clearance, and that was clearance number 10, and I celebrated that like a goal or an assist, right? So that's the element of fun that we now have in FPL, thanks to DEFCON. So yeah, very very happy with that. 10 DEFCON for Van Dijk, so that was good. Same story with Anderson and Caicedo in my team, and that is why I have them in their team, right? Because Anderson has pretty much, uh, you know, always been in and around that 12 DEFCON mark for defenders. He didn't get it in the first three games, but now he's getting it consistently. In fact, and this game week he ended up with 15 defensive contributions, so that is really good. And remember, he got it against a team like Burnley. So I think Anderson is one of those players who will get you the defensive contribution points against any team. So the game state does not really matter for a player like him, because the kind of profile that Anderson is, right, the kind of player that he is, the opponent doesn't matter. He has a certain role. He has certain strengths, and even the new manager, Ange, is also using him based on his strengths. So I think that's very good news if you have him in your FPL. I think there will also be these few weeks here and there where he'll score a goal or he'll get an assist, and he'll get the defensive contribution points. And for 5.5 million, you're looking at regular 4 points plus that random 10, 12, 14, 15 points call in one of these games, as we've seen with Caicedo in the last couple of weeks, right, where he can turn up with an assist or a goal and he'll end up with 12 points. So I think that will happen at some point with Elliot Anderson as well. So very happy to have him in the team as well. Same with Caicedo, my latest recruit. I've been speaking about him for a while now. Very happy to have him on board. It's players like Caicedo and Anderson that's allowing me to have the likes of Haaland and Salah together, and at the same time also have someone like a Van Dijk, Bruno, and also Ekitike, who's not very cheap. He's almost 9 million in price. So yeah, quite happy to have these two, Caicedo and Anderson. Reinders, terrific. The defensive contribution points were a surprise to me, but I think with the Reinders, right, with these kind of players, it is down to the game state. So Arsenal were really turning it up in the second half, and that is when he got the majority of his 12 defensive contribution points, the 12 DEFCON. I think most of them came in the second half. Got an assist. I think he was overall very, very good. He could have had another return. I feel that one chance he just shot at David Raya. I think he should have scored there. He could have just taken an extra touch and gone for the bottom corner. But regardless, see, 9 points is not bad at all, especially for his price. In a week where not a lot of people got very good scores, I would say, and a lot of people benched him. A lot of people sold Reinders. I don't think that's a very wise thing to do. But the fact of the matter is, I have him in my team, and if you follow my content, hopefully you have him in your team as well. And same is the story with my three big hitters, Bruno Fernandes. Uh, if you've watched my last episode, he was one of the players I was really backing, with the armband. In fact, my bus team had Bruno as the captain, so I really fancied him for the armband. I expected the Chelsea United game to be very open, And I feel it was open, right? If you watch the game, the red card did change, the dynamics, I would say, in terms of Chelsea just getting very, very defensive. But had it not happened, I feel that the game would have been very open. And in the end, right, United ended up winning. In general, I felt there were a lot of opportunities in the game despite the red card, and then obviously Casemiro scores and he gets a red card as well. And the 10v10, it was still very open. I think if United had made some smart decisions, against the run of play in transition, because in the second half Chelsea were really at it. They were keeping a lot of the ball, but see, that's only one way. That's a very one-dimensional way of looking at football, right? So yes, Chelsea had a lot of the possession, but United had chances on the counter had they made the right decision. I think they were just a little passive, a bit reluctant, that they didn't really want to uh, end up conceding that second goal as well, and that really played in the back of their minds. Had they played their natural football, I think United could have scored maybe a couple more, and Bruno could have been involved in those goals. So if you have Bruno in your team, well done. I feel he was definitely a fair captaincy shout this week. Really liked him. Salah got an assist. Very happy to have him. I didn't captain him, going against the run of play, like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, because my captain was Haaland, uh, best player in the league. For a player like Haaland, the opponent does not matter. He will always, always, always be up for it, and that reflects in his numbers. Not just the 9 points against Arsenal, just his general, underlying data for the season. And this is not the first time we are talking about it. This is something that I've spoken about pretty much in every episode in this podcast. So 0.52 xg against Arsenal, that's very good. He ended up taking this chance, scoring the goal. If you watch the game, Haaland could have easily had another return as well. In fact, I think the other shot that he had on target, he had Foden, who was really in a 1v1 situation. Normally, you'd expect a striker like Haaland to make the right decision and find Foden. Had he done that, Foden ends up scoring, Haaland gets an assist, and then he's suddenly on 12 points. So that would have been 6 points extra for me having captained him. But that's just part of football, right? Uh, Even someone as good as Haaland, even though he's the best player in the world, he will not always uh, make the best decisions all the time, because at the end of the day, he's a human being. Every footballer is a human being. So nine points is not bad at all. And I will always tell you, Haaland is fixture proof. You can always captain him in any game against any opponent. This is a guy I am backing to score 40 goals in the Premier League this season, as long as he stays fit and he starts, pretty much all the 38. I think if he gets 36, 37 starts, he'll score 40 goals. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And once again, is it's not. I mean, it's not bait. It's not sensationalism. I'm not just saying it, for the sake of it or because I support City. It's just the sheer fact that there's no one like him in terms of his movement, his shooting, the kind of chances that he creates for himself. And look at his xg numbers: 1.99 against Wolverhampton, 0.47 against Tottenham, where he should have scored as well, even though he blanked that game. That does not really matter. 1.4 xg against Brighton, 1.8 xg against United, and 0.52 against Arsenal. So I think he's just fantastic, fixture proof. There was a lot of noise on Twitter around the fact that Arsenal is a difficult fixture for Haaland. The answer is no. Again, it's just narratives that people drive for the sake of it, right? They just want to convince themselves that what we are saying is correct. Because if you look at Haaland's record against Arsenal, the whole narrative that he struggles against Gabriel or Saliba is rubbish. I think last season Haaland was a bit off because City in general were not functioning at a very high level. But if you look at Haaland's numbers, I don't have them on my screen right now, but I know them by heart. That if you look at Haaland's numbers, he has 7 fixtures against Arsenal, 5 goals and 2 assists. So that's 7 attacking returns against Arsenal. He's blanked just twice. So out of those 7 games, he's he's got you a return in at least five of those games, blank just twice. That's not a bad record. He's averaging a goal or an assist every single game uh, against Arsenal, so that's not a bad record. In fact, that's a very good record for a team that is supposed to be one of the top teams, and they are one of the top teams in the league, right? One of the top teams in the world, I would say. So any other striker, yes, if it's not wise to captain them against Arsenal, but Haaland is Haaland, and especially this season, once again, right? Purely going by just his expected goal data. See, 6.2 xg is what Haaland's got in 5 games, and 0.3 xg. So we're looking at an expected goal involvement of 6.5. Okay, now if you consider just Haaland's xg numbers, Haaland alone has more xg than 8 Premier League teams this season. So this guy is better than a lot of teams in the Premier League this season. That is the level. It's just so hard to even talk about this because he's just performing on absolutely another level. No player in the Premier League is at his level right now. Not even close. Okay, I think Salah will eventually get very close to him, but right now, I mean, with the kind of confidence that he's playing in, he's just looking very sharp. Uh, on another level. His movement is on, his confidence is on another level, and uh, City as a team, right? I think they've got just 7 points on board, but it's just a matter of time, right? Where the results really start going their way. They've had a tricky start to the season, right? They've played Spurs, United, and Arsenal already. Things will definitely get better in the future, and we'll talk about it later when we talk about the game week 6 sort of overview. Game week 6 also happens to be a week where a lot of people are looking at playing their wild card and their triple captainship as well. So we'll just do a bit of a deep diving into the captaincy aspect of it. Long story short, of course, you can captain Haaland in any game. You can triple captain Haaland in any game if you like, and Burnley at home is as good as it comes. Uh, but we'll talk about that later, and we'll also, even though I've used my wild card already, because I just felt that I wanted Haaland and Salah in game week 2, so I just went for it, and I'm quite happy with it. But yeah, just back to the wildcard thing, right? So we'll also, while we are on the spot, right, I'll just put together a team that I feel is probably the best wildcard team. Just my opinion. I don't cater to the popular opinions for the sake of it, right? So I know that all the content creators have been uh, talking up, this factor of selling Salah to get Haaland. See, my thing is very simple. If you're playing a wild card and you're not getting in both hubs, we've seen enough signs so far this season that you need to get both. So if you're not getting both, I don't see what's the point of playing the wild card. So keeping that in mind, I'll also put together a wild card team later in the pod. So back to my team review for game week 5. Yeah, I think we've covered it all. This guy did pretty well for me as well. Hugo Ekiteke uh, got me 8 points, scored a goal. I think he looked good. Got a couple of bonuses as well. The funny thing is that Ekiteke, even though he was taken out, I think at 60, he played just 66 minutes, including the bonus as well, right? I mean, apart from the bonus, he could have still got 2 extra points. Why? Because he almost ended up getting 12 DEFCON. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, I think had he managed to get that one extra defensive contribution point, he would have become the first forward, if I'm not wrong, to hit the DEFCON number. So he would have ended up on 10 points for just scoring the goal, and that's crazy, right? So, I mean, hats off to uh, you know the people at the official FPL office, whoever the marketing team, whoever's making these decisions. This is such a great addition to the game, right? A great feature where now it's not one dimensional, right? Not everyone has the same team. There's just so much variety and so many routes to points, I feel. And with someone like Ekitiki, as we are just talking about, I mean, he's a forward, but apart from the fact that he scored a goal, because he's working so hard off the ball, the game now rewards his actions. and that is terrific to me. So that's fantastic. So really like the feature. Speaking of just Yogo Ekiteke, I really like him as a player, but unfortunately, I think it's now the time to move him on with the ESAC situation and everything. We'll go a bit deeper into that later in the episode. So yeah, that's my game week review. Left, I think, eight. I left 14 points on the bench because Petrovic got six, Steve got four, Goodmanson got four. Both Steve and Goodmanson ended up getting DefCon points. So that's fine. That's fine. I think the players I started really did well. I think the only one I could have played for one of these two defenders, I could have probably left Van de Ven out, but that's just a hindsight pick, right? I always fancy someone like a Van de Ven to just maybe score a goal here and there, but it gives me some food for thought because even though it was a difficult game for Tottenham, Van de Ven, despite the fact that he's done well for me, he did not get any DefCon. So just going back to yeah, just got like three DEFCON. That's poor. It was Romero who was doing a lot of the sweeping, uh, heading the ball out, clearing the ball, putting in the tackles, intercepting play. So that is food for thought. Maybe I need to look for an escape plan. Take Van de Ven out in the coming weeks. I think I'll give him the Wolves game. I'll give him the Wolves game. I think he could score a goal against Wolves. Wolves are rubbish. I think they
Based
are.
on your text, you're discussing defensive soccer strategies, clearing the ball, tackling, and intercepting.
That's
It
Google
seems you're
Gemini.
also contemplating a change or an escape.
It always works when you don't need it. I don't know how it uh, ended up speaking. Let's just take a sip of water. One sec. So yeah, back to Van de Ven, right? I think I'll probably give him the Wolves game. Maybe the Leeds game. I'm not sure because I think there are better 4.5 options. I've always liked Anderson from Fulham. I already have Senesi, who I feel is really good. So yeah, I think I need to start thinking of an escape plan for Van de Ven. But the other side of it is that even though he's not getting DEFCON, Spurs are one of the teams that have been keeping clean sheets every now and then. So they kept a clean sheet against Burnley. They kept on against City, which not a lot of people expected. Uh, kept one against West Ham as well. So they've got like three cleans in 5 games so far. Uh, I think I'm more than happy to give him the Wolves game, and then we can assess after that. So yeah, that's the game week 5 review of my team. We'll, as you know, right, the format always, before we really get into the game week 6 overview, we'll just quickly go through the game week 5 fixtures in terms of what really stood out, what didn't stand out, uh, which are the players that really should be in our watch list. So yeah, I think in general, right, with this game, because a lot of the top teams sort of played each other, there's not much to talk about. I have an interesting observation in the Bournemouth game, the Bournemouth Newcastle game. So we'll talk about that. Also, just a bit on Gyökeres. I think I want to talk about him a little bit. Uh, just have some thoughts on Palace as well, but we'll talk about it in the game week 6 overview. Let's just wrap this up first. So Liverpool 2, Everton 1. I feel it was an entertaining game to watch, if especially if you're a Liverpool supporter or an Everton supporter, right? I think they would. It was a typical derby game where, as you would expect, Liverpool at home were in control initially, but Everton, really, they grew into the game, ended up, scoring a goal thanks to Gay, but didn't quite have enough to get over the line. I feel Eketeke was good. I think Gakpo was rubbish. Really, if you have Gakpo, I think you should start thinking of an exit plan for Cody Gakpo. Salah, I think, was all right, but it's just the kind of game that I expected. Right, Everton is a little tricky at times, but I feel he was a lot better than what we've seen since last week. If you watched my pod last week, I said that the Atletico game will be very interesting from a Mo Salah perspective. In terms of, I mentioned how Arne Slot will be reminded of this by his analytics team, by Mo Salah, that this old tactic that he tried in the first four games of having Salah out wide, it didn't really work out. So I think he's back to having Salah, more involved. He's attacking the box a lot more now. Interestingly, Florian Wirtz was also dropped. He came on, got a yellow card, and even though I started with this guy in game week one, the first thing I wanted to do was I played my game week two wildcard and I kicked him out of the team because I mean he's just a bad attacker, I would say. Maybe if he plays a different role for Liverpool, like where he's just holding, very similar to what Grealish used to play for Pep, for example. But I feel Grealish is a much better player than Wirtz. Obviously, you can clip this, make a meme out of it, laugh at me. I don't care. Uh, Premier League is not everyone's cup of tea, right? And Florian Wirtz has not really settled down. Like I say, this is not the Bundesliga. Uh, Obviously, he will not always blank. He will. There will be games where he will score and he'll get an assist, but that will only happen because of Mo Salah. Once Arne Slot is now reverting to having Salah as the main man, taking a lot of touches in and around the penalty area, and that will help even mediocre players like Florian Wirtz get some goals and assists. So that is the story. So he was benched, but I think there was some controversy that Liverpool, because they were winning, there was just 3 minutes added on, and I don't buy it. This almost sounds like you're making an excuse, right? See, if you look at it, just from a 90 minutes perspective, I think Liverpool were comfortably the better team in the 90 minutes. Scored two goals, Everton scored one, and they walked away with 3 points, right? So that's all that I look at. So yeah, not much, in terms of the other talking points. Brighton 2, Spurs 2. I think that Brighton were quite good in this game. Uh, Despite the fact that they were good, I don't really look at Brighton as a team that we will really benefit in FPL. I don't see, really standout options. I saw some shouts about, this guy, Yankuba Minte, but it's he's a bit hot and cold. I feel where he didn't get anything in the first, I think first 2 3 games. Did he get a DefCon against City? Yeah, he got like two additional points for DefCon, but that's purely because they were doing so much defensive work and it's doing a lot of off the ball work against City, and that's not going to happen always. So I look at it as 3 games where he does not get a goal or an assist. Uh, Gets an assist versus Bournemouth, gets a goal against Tottenham in this in this weekend's game, and he's got like two attacking returns. He's priced nicely, isn't he? He's priced at what, 5.9. I think he was priced at like 6 million. Had a price fall. Yeah. I think he had a price fall in game week three. Just just looking at his expected goals numbers here, right? It's got like 1.3 xg in 5 games. Decent. I would say for his price, the numbers are not bad. But do you really want a Brighton attacker in that price range? I am not sure. I think you'd rather get Anderson or Caicedo for that price. So yeah, but he did well to take his goal. I think Minte in general had a very good game. Richarlison scored for Spurs. We'll talk about Richarlison a bit later. Mohammad Kudus sort of stood out to me. I think he had a really good game, even though the numbers will only tell us a part of that story, right? So the data is telling us that he had just 0.16 expected assists, but if you watch the game, I feel he was just electric, right? There were a couple of occasions where he was just one moment away from getting into a position where he would have ended up scoring or setting up a goal for someone else, and in FPL terms that means points for us. So I feel that he was really really good, so that's one to keep an eye on. I think from an attacking perspective in general, just from a short term perspective, I really think, especially if you're on a wild card, you should take a punt on a Spurs attacker, and I think Kudus could be one of the players that you can consider. But yeah, the expected goals numbers are not really looking good, even though he looked quite threatening against Brighton. I think a lot of it comes down to the kind of I would say the tactical instruction from Thomas Frank, right? I think he really looks at Kudus as someone who is a pure creator. That is why he's not been given the license to really go out there and shoot, get into goal scoring. He really does that creative job really well. So that's been the story. We'll talk about Kudus a bit more later. But so yeah, that's pretty much it. From a Kudus was also the standard player, right? Getting a couple of assists in the game. Very unlucky because he picked up a yellow card and he just missed out in the bonus because Ayari and Minte also scored and Richarlison being the striker. See, a striker, if he's scoring a goal and he does absolutely nothing in the rest of the game, he's very likely to end up with 3 bonus points. So that's exactly what happened. So Richarlison got 3 bonus. I think Kudus was, if you own Kudus, right, is very, very unlucky to not get any bonus points. Getting 2 assists and he still ends up with just 7 points, right? That I feel that's very harsh. If you compare that to someone like a Tijani Reinders, for example, who got just 1 assist, but he got 2 points for DEFCON and he got 2 bonus and he ends up on 9 points despite getting 1 assist. So see, that's the kind of layer that DEFCON has added now, right? The new feature. So important to pick guys who also have DEFCON potential, and that's the story. That is the story. I think Romero is someone that you really need to consider. I think if you're on a wild card, he could be the Spurs. Even though I've got Van de Ven in my team, I think Romero could be the guy to get because he does well for DEFCON. I think he got like. Did he get like 12? Oh, he got 18. He got 18 DEFCON. Uh, that is crazy. But see, again, when I'm just looking at these numbers, right, the DEFCON numbers, even for Romero, are very inconsistent. So even though they are better than Van de Ven, uh, see, in the West Ham game, because Spurs was so comfortable, he got just 3 DEFCON, just 7 DEFCON in the Bournemouth game. City, he had 10 DEFCON, Burnley just 5. So still a bit of question mark, I would say. But if you really want a Spurs defender on your wild card, instead of Van de Ven, I think I'll spend that extra point 4 because I think Van de Ven he's gone up to 4.7 now. Romero is 5.1. Let's just spend that extra 0.4 million and you can just pick Romero. Uh, I think he'll be a steadier pick. But again, I don't think you need to go for a Spurs defender on your wild card. I think you just go for Spurs attacker purely as short term punt. That's all. Not much in the Burnley Nottingham Forest game. It ended up 1-1. Uh, Douglas Luiz got an assist. It's very interesting because he started alongside Elliot Anderson. I- So Douglas Luiz was playing that DLP role, right? He's playing as a defensive playmaker, I would say, alongside. I think that's even better for Anderson's DEFCON potential. So I hope that continues if they sort of develop that partnership where uh, Douglas Luiz is kind of playing that role where he's just putting a lot of passes together, just trying to progress the ball, and Anderson is playing that role where he is just doing that work of regaining possession, putting in the interceptions, tackles, etc. I think that's good for Anderson from an FPL perspective, because remember Anderson, the kind of profile that he also likes to crash the box every now and then. So I think the goals will come for Anderson. The goals and the assists every now and then will come. He also likes a long ball, Elliot Anderson. So I think that's good. He almost ended up Anderson, despite not getting any goals and assists, he also almost ended up getting a bonus point as well. So yeah, that's I think he's a great pick for that price. See, last season as well, he started 33 games, and once he became a regular, he did have a few assists and goals. So he got like 6 assists, got a couple of goals. So yeah, just keep him in your team. I think he's a very viable pick. Nottingham Forest they don't look that good defensively anymore. But see, it's very early days, right, for Ange Postecoglou. I think you need to give him some time before we just figure out what exactly who are the. I think Morgan Gibbs White could end up becoming a good option in terms of being the main man in the team, but still very early days. I think once they start clicking, it'll really happen for Nottingham Forest. And even if it's not happening, see, all you need to do is get in Anderson. You get in Elliot Anderson, get those 4 points as the floor. Job well done. Once they pick up pace, then we can really think of which defenders we need to get in, whether we can get in a Morgan Gibbs White or Chris Wood later on in the season. So yeah, that's the story. West Ham Palace is an interesting one because once again Mateta scores, does not get any bonus points. Uh, I know that West Ham are rubbish, but I just feel that Palace, they look very leggy to me, right? They don't look like they're 100%. Obviously, in the past episodes, I've spoken about their defensive uh, issues. I would say that they don't quite look like the team of last season, and that is fair because I don't think the squad is quite big, and they've been playing 2 games a week, right? They've been playing in Europe. They've lost Eze, they've lost Ismail Assar, and there's a Carabao Cup game where they'll feature this week. I think I'll just have a look if that is the case. So they're just looking a bit, leggy to me. That's my thinking. That's my observation when I watch them. Actually, Palace are one of the teams that don't have a midweek fixture. They already played their Carabao Cup game before they played West Ham. So next up they'll straight up play Liverpool. So that's interesting. But in general, I think whenever I've watched Palace in the last few weeks, I've always felt that they are not quite the same team we're used to seeing. Right? That's always been my thoughts about Palace this year. But we'll see. We'll see. We talk about Palace a bit more. I think for West Ham, it's not looking good. To be honest, it's also weird because I really like Paqueta at that price, but the amount of tweaking that we are seeing, right? The kind of chopping and changing that we're seeing Graham Potter do to the lineup and the rules, I think that's not quite helping Lucas Paqueta. If we see Paqueta play that number 10 role with the same people around him for 2 3 weeks, I think then the chemistry will start developing. I don't really know why Potter is just making so many changes. He needs to come up with a plan and stick to it. I mean, even their goalkeepers, right? He's rotating their goalkeeper as well. He gave Areola a game this week. So unfortunately, right, I know that Paqueta is one of the players that I've recommended in the past, and if you got him in, I'm sorry about it because it's not quite looking like Potter really has a plan. Because I was thinking that after they got that positive result against Nottingham Forest, I thought that Graham Potter will stick to it, and it makes sense, right? See, Graham Potter has the experience. He's not a new manager. He has managed a Premier League team before, so I thought that he'll really stick to the task, and regardless of the results, he'd stick to the tactic and give those boys few games in those roles. Let them just adjust to that tactic, get used to each other. But he's not doing it. I mean, he's chopping and changing it. He changed a few things against Spurs. In the Spurs game, he put Paqueta as you want to call it, the striker, centre forward, false nine, whatever. So Paqueta was the main man up front, if you'd like to call it. And then suddenly, when they're playing Palace next week, it's again, it's Callum Wilson that is suddenly playing up top, and then Bowen is on the right, Paqueta is behind them. So it's just a little bit of a mess right now. But if you still have him in your team, I think just hold on to it, right, in the hope of what's happening. Hopefully, if Graham Potter gets the sack, and maybe someone like a Nuno comes in, then I think Paqueta suddenly becomes an appealing option again. But if you've got him in your team, you've given him a couple of weeks, I think just give him maybe a couple more weeks and see how it goes. Otherwise, he's an easy sell. The other options that I've suggested in the past are Caicedo, you can get an Elian Anderson. Of course, you can also get into Johnny Reinders, who is also still at a very, very good price. He was sold by a lot of people last week, and I don't know why you would sell him. He's punished them. He's got 9 points. He's flying. They have good fixtures. You can just simply bring him in. Uh, Wolves at home to Leeds United. Wolves are absolutely rubbish. I think they are pretty much guaranteed to play in the championship next season. They're getting relegated. Uh, this guy scored a goal. I just saw someone on Twitter. I think they captained him, and there's just so much noise. That thousands of likes on his post, and he ends up getting just 7 points. Right. So I mean, this is what you will get if you captain a Wolves defender, right? They're definitely never keeping a clean sheet. It's Wolves. This season they're rubbish. We know they're never keeping a clean sheet. I think gets a goal and ends up with 7 points. So yeah, I mean, just I wanted to call it out because it's funny, right? That just a lot of crazy things happen in the FPL community. So this is one of those crazy things. 3 goals for Leeds. And I mean, we expected that, right? That Leeds will definitely win because it was an away game for Leeds. I didn't really fancy Goodmanson to keep a clean sheet. Otherwise, I would have probably started him. But nonetheless, I think if you still have Goodmanson, I think he's a decent pick. So is Rodon. You know, these players will keep. Rodon almost missed out the DEFCON, right? He hit 9, the threshold is 10. Goodmanson ended up hitting 10. So, yeah, good news if you have Goodmanson and if you played him, well done, that's 4 points for you. A player that I find quite interesting is. I'll tell you. Let's just wrap this up. I've already spoken about Bruno and United right at the start, so we will not spend much time in the United Chelsea discussion. I feel that Mbumo again, I hope he doesn't become the kind of player who always looks threatening, but he never ends up scoring a goal, right? Because again in the Chelsea game, I think Mbumo really passed the eye test, but he did not get on the score sheet. So that's been the story. But yeah, I think that for that reason, Bruno is worth that extra money. I feel if you really want a United midfielder, uh, Sheshko is not an option for me at all. Uh, Dorgo's back in the lineup. It seems got an assist, but United don't seem to keep clean sheets, and Dorgo does not do well in the DefCon numbers either. So not much to look at from that perspective. Maguire got an assist, and he was taken off before United conceded. So somehow, if you have Maguire in your team, you must have ended up with 11 points. So if you have him in your team and you started Maguire, very well done. Reece James got an assist as well. could be a shrewd pick actually, Reece James, because his delivery from those right half space channels is just so good. It's just a shame that Maresca is just a manager who I feel will rotate a lot, and we saw it randomly happening, with Kokorea as well in the game week before that, right, where you know he just ends up playing Heto, and that's always the worry with Maresca. So that's the reason why I don't really like Chelsea defenders, at least right now. Later on, if it looks like they have a settled team and Maresca is really just trusting him, his first choice players, and I think we can really consider a Kukorea or a Reece James. And the fact that they're fullbacks and they're not really in the DEFCON, I think that takes away that appeal, in my opinion. I won't go and discuss too much about the Fulham Brentford game. I think Fulham players are not an option in FPL for me, and same with Brentford, right? So it's going to be a waste of time. I wanted to talk a few things about Semenyo, but we'll just do that in a bit. Sunderland Aston Villa ended up 1-1. Sunderland were down one man. They were playing with just 10 men, and still Villa struggled against Sunderland. Again, I will not repeat myself too much. I've been saying it for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Aston Villa are rubbish. Watkins is on a downward spiral. Aston Villa, they are really struggling in terms of so they've had the same team for the last few years, and I think they've all sort of peaked already, and they're now sort of on a downward trajectory. And the fact that the kind of players that they have, like of just already said a few things about the likes of McGinn and Tielemans, even though he's injured, right? Just not up to the mark, right? And they don't look like a team that will ever win a game of football. Of course, they will win some games eventually, but you don't really want to spend 9 million on Watkins in FPL for being the main man for such a team. So yeah, I mean, you still have Watkins, and you want to wait for 2 3 weeks if you want to be stubborn. I mean, good luck with those blanks, but I feel that just sometimes you just have to put your hand up and say that, listen, I got this wrong. It was a bad decision. I should sell this guy. He's not looking the part at all, and that's been the case with Ollie Watkins, because I know that a lot of managers will have Watkins in their teams, and when he ends up, I mean, see, probability is a funny thing, right? There will be some games, back to back games, Watkins ends up scoring from absolutely, you know, very difficult chances, for example. And then you'll have players, acting like some managers acting like prophets that, oh, I kept him because I knew the goals were coming. And if you want to do that, you do that, but it's not really a wise thing to keep a player like Watkins playing for a team like Villa. Doesn't make sense. And I said it before the game as well, right? I tweeted that if you're keeping Watkins because if you think that Sunderland is an easy fixture, let me tell you that for Sunderland, Aston Villa is the easy fixture. Right? You also need to look at it from that perspective, because Villa have not been good at all. I tweeted about how Villa is the second worst team in the league, only behind Burnley, if you look at it statistically. So the signs were there, right? Even the goal that Villa scored was, I mean, they were just lucky to get. So if you have Matty Cash in your team, you got those. I think you got a 10 pointer. Well done, but that's a stroke of luck that you had over there, and that's what FPL is all about, right? We get lucky every now and then. I got lucky last week with the Van de Ven goal against West Ham, and he got me like 14. And this time, I think it was the turn of Matty Cash. Even though I feel that the Van de Ven goal was more convincing, but a goal is a goal, points are points. So if you have Matty Cash, well done. But yeah, just talking about the narratives, right? I think Sunderland have been a much better team than Aston Villa this season, and had they not gone down, you know, uh, to 10 men with that red card, I feel that Sunderland would have got a result against Aston Villa. I really do. It could have been a 2-1 sort of a game. And yeah, lastly, Arsenal and Manchester City ended 1-1. I spoke about Haaland and Reinders, so not much to talk about here. So what we'll do is we will very quickly head over to the game week 6 fixtures. So yeah, this is what the bus team is looking like. But what I'll do is we'll just look at the game week 6 fixtures first, see what fixtures we can sort of target, what kind of players can we target in terms of the matchups and everything. And yeah, I'll just grab some water before we start. So yeah, the few things that I pointed out, right, that I wanted to talk about is, firstly, is Semenyo. So there's something that I've observed about Semenyo. So we just I'll just share it with you guys. You can see if you find how much substance you find in. Of course, at the end of the day, if you're taking an FPL decision, the choice is always yours. But there's something that I observed about Semenyo, so I thought I'll just discuss it with you guys as well. I'll just point it out. So that's something that I wanted to talk about. Uh, Also, Spurs attackers from a short-term perspective. I think that is worth a discussion as well. And Arsenal, I think Arsenal definitely deserve some discussion because uh, the fixtures now turn, right. They play Newcastle away, but after that they have some really nice fixtures. So we will talk about Arsenal as well. And another interesting, player that I feel could be. I mean, he's he is a player that is hated by a lot of experienced FPL managers. Well, we just talk about all of it, right? Let's start with the Leeds player that I'm talking about, right? It's not worthy of very lengthy discussions, but it's still worth a discussion, I feel. So if you're in the market, right? So if you're in a situation like me, for example, where I'm looking to move on Ekitiki, or if you're on a wild card and you're trying to fit Haaland, you're trying to fit Salah, and really trying to get that team where you have Haaland, Salah, Bruno, Van Dijk, maybe David Raya in goal, maybe an Arsenal defender, then I think the kind of striker that I'm about to suggest could really work out for a team. I'm talking about this guy, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Looks like he's going to be the main man until he stays fit, of course, because he's had his injury troubles in the past. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin has always been that kind of a striker who gets a lot of chances. So he has good movement. Even if you go back to his, Everton days, for example, he's always been an underperformer when it comes to XG. See, you look at his 23-24 data. Very inconsistent in terms of game time because he didn't get a lot of minutes because of his fitness issues. But when he was starting, if you see his 23-24 data, he got like 12 points. That's almost 13 xg. But the fact that he's a bad finisher means that he ended up with just 7 goals. Same story last season. Whenever he got his chances, he had an xg of 6.5, but he ended up scoring just 3 goals because he's not a clinical finisher. Now, he's playing for Leeds, and the story continues because he is, since he started, so he had a sub appearance against Newcastle, but then he started the game against Fulham, got 68 minutes, and then he started the Wolverhampton game as well, right? He's not getting the high volume of chances yet, but I think if you're really in the market for a punt, at 5.5 million. See, in that 5.55 million striker bracket, you don't really have a lot of options. I think you're probably looking at on a bit of a higher side a guy like Thiago from Brentford, who I don't think he's a very good option. Uh, or you're looking at someone like Foster for Burnley. I think he comes in at 5, so he's even cheaper if you really want to go there. But having watched the Burnley games, he does not seem to be the main man in terms of the penalty area touches, being there inside the box. But if you look at someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think he could be worth a shout. Bournemouth in 6, Tottenham in 7. But then this is where it gets interesting. 8 and 9, he's got Burnley away and he's got West Ham United at home. I think these two fixtures, if he stays fit, uh, And even if you get him in, right? If you just get him in with the thinking that, I'll use him for the next 4, 5, 6 games, till the Villa game, I think it's a fair shout, because my thinking is that he's starting, he's getting 70, 75 minutes. His movement is good, right? If you catch him in that hot streak, where he is getting those goals, and the fact that I think he could be on penalties as well. See, because he played the Wolves game today, over the weekend, he got a goal and he got an assist. He walks away with 11 points, and with someone like him who's constantly, because he's not very versatile. If you take FPL out of the equation and if you analyze Calvert-Lewin and DCL as a player, he is not very versatile. Okay, so he does not offer a lot outside his movement, outside the fact that he really likes to be in and around the penalty area. So, I'm just thinking from that perspective that, and that's exactly what we want in FPL, right? We want a number 9 to be in and around the penalty area. Just a lot of times he's just holding off the ball, playing it to the wingers and midfielders, and then running inside the box to be at the end of those crosses and through balls. So I think that that makes him a decent option if you're brave enough, if you are one of those like me who don't worry about what people will say. I think he's a brave pick. I think he's definitely someone that you should get on a wild card, because the next 3, 4 look really good, right? And because he's so cheap, he will enable you to get those big guns. And I if you are watching my podcast, I'm purely an advocate of Salah and Haaland in the team, right? So I'm just talking with that perspective. The Any advice that I will give you will be on those lines. I'm just thinking from that perspective that I think he could be worth a shout. And because his price is so low, you can definitely just bring him in and you can rotate him with maybe a fourth or fifth defender in your team. So that is my thinking. Maybe you bench him against Bournemouth and Tottenham, but then you play him in game week 8 and game week 9 when he's playing Burnley away and he's playing West Ham at home. So I, it's worth a shout. Let me know. What if you think it's outrageous and I'm talking rubbish, you can let me know as well. And we'll see, right? I'll always make it a point to come back and just analyze. I'll keep him in my watch list. Even if I don't get him, just to see that how well he's done in the next 3 or 4 games. So yeah, that's the thinking. So I just wanted to just point out that DCL could be a shout. The guy I think a lot of active managers, because he's been a bit of a troll, right? From his FPL history, that he's not always done very well whenever we've bought him into our team. So he's not very much loved in the community. But I think if you just keep the past, if you keep the history aside, I think he could be worth a shout. So that is there. So that's Leeds, right? From wildcard perspective. The other teams I think that we can discuss are Arsenal. I think we'll definitely also discuss City as well. I think two City picks are very straightforward, right? So we'll discuss City. And like I said, the team I want to talk about is uh, Spurs, just from the point of view of their short-term fixtures being very good. But before we do all that, let me take you through this man who I don't have in my team. So remember, I told you that I feel that Semenyo will have a tough game against Newcastle, because I was seeing a lot of captaincy shouts. Some people did end up captaining Semenyo as well. They got lucky because he got the out of the blue. He gets like he's hitting his DefCon, and he walks away with 5 points. Right, so he almost matches Salah despite not getting an assist. So that's crazy, but I'll just yeah. I'm just looking out for his underlying data here. Yeah. So yeah, back to it, right? So see, he's got 2.8 xg. Uh, the expected assist numbers are not great, despite the fact that he's ended up with 2 assists. I think he's been very lucky to get those assists, I feel. But yeah, 3 goals on the board. But remember, what's also important to note is that out of those 3 goals, you got two of those goals against Liverpool, where not a lot of people had him, and that was, I feel, a very chaotic game. I think for Bournemouth, really against the run of play. I feel right since that game against Liverpool, he's not really been up to the mark. If you take that Brighton game out of the picture, I think he's been all right, to be honest. See, his numbers against Spurs were, I mean, pretty average, I would say. Uh, Same story against. I think he was quite bad against Newcastle, to be honest. And what I wanted to point out is I'm just trying to understand the pattern of how Bournemouth set up from a tactical perspective, because I've noticed in some games Semenyo is given the license to really go out there and attack the box. And in some games, he's playing this withdrawn role, and it's Evan Wilson who gets away most of the shots. So I'm just trying to find, just trying to understand what is the pattern there, right? And I'm struggling. I was so initially, right? So I was just thinking about this yesterday. I thought it could be an away versus home thinking, but that doesn't seem to be the case, because he went big in the Liverpool game, and that was an away game, right? Then they played Wolves at home. Then Tottenham away, he did nothing. They play Brighton at home. He again, I feel he was not really up to the task. But the fact that he ended up taking that penalty, we all expected Evan Wilson to take the pen, but he didn't take the penalty. So uh, he ends up taking the penalty, and that, I think, that has really bumped up his score, because if you take that penalty away, you're really looking at him being on 32, 33 points, and that's all right. I mean, that's not groundbreaking, because out of those 32, 33, he got 15 against Liverpool, and that was completely against the run of play, like I said. So we're really looking at a player that shouldn't have had as many points as he had so far. So I'm not still very, very confident about Semenyo. I know he's already very popular, right? I think very soon it'll reach that point where his points will not matter anymore, because look at his ownership. It's gone up to 46% ownership already. It's ridiculous, man, ridiculous. I don't think he's worth that popularity. I mean, good player, of course. I'm very happy for him, but last season we saw that he's very streaky, right? And the point that I wanted to make was that I'm not quite sure that what his role is, just from a tactical perspective, because I'm not seeing a clear pattern here. Because in some games he's really attacking the box, and in some games he's not. So that's my worry. In fact, if you just talk about the fact that from a non-penalty threat perspective, right? If you take away the fact that he took the penalty, apart from the Wolves game, okay, Tottenham, Brighton, and Newcastle, it's been the same story. He's playing that withdrawn role. So I don't quite think that he could be really the main man for Bournemouth. And if you watch the Newcastle game, right, after Clivert came on, they were not really passing the ball a lot to Semenyo. So that will be interesting to see. But just speaking from my team perspective, right? I think if I get him, it's probably going to be because I'm like really forced to bring him in, because his ownership is sky high. But again, if I look at my team, I don't see how we can fit him in. I'm happy with Salah. I'm happy with Bruno. I'm very happy with Reinders as well. I'm happy with Caicedo. I'm happy with Anderson. Do I really push one of these guys out just to bring in Semenyo? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. So yeah, that's one thing that I noticed. I just want to understand how Bournemouth what the philosophy is. What is his thinking? What is the pattern? In which games, on what basis is he allowed to really attack the box? And in which games he's been asked to sort of uh, just hold the width and pass the ball around, because he didn't really pass the eye test to me. Or even from a data point of view, he didn't really look that good against uh, Newcastle, or the Brighton game, or the Spurs game for that matter. So that is why I'm not very keen. He's just shooting up in price, right? And at this point, I think he'll very soon be like 8 million. And but I'm still holding on, right? I've not made an early transfer. I just don't want to knee jerk and just destroy my team structure to bring him in. That's my thinking. Uh, this guy, I wonder why he didn't really stake a claim for that penalty against Brighton. But again, he had a very average game against Newcastle as well. I thought it was a very tight game, not really promising in terms of his numbers as well. Just 1 xg in 5 games, so that's not very good. That's not the kind of numbers you want your striker to have in FPL, and that's very much in contrast to his numbers from last season, for example, because he came into the league, he had like 28 starts last season for Bournemouth. He had very good expected goals number, 12.47 xg, uh, decent threat in terms of his assists as well. He ended up with 15 attacking returns, 10 goals, and five. In fact, he underperformed his expected goals. So uh, you really need Evan Wilson to really turn it up in terms of getting those numbers. So I am hoping that happens against Leeds and Fulham and Palace. I think these. I think I like the Leeds and the Palace game, honestly. But it'll be an interesting one, really. Uh, I'll also speak to some Bournemouth fans, because I'm just trying to understand what the pattern is, right, in terms of the attacking play. I think that will give us a lot of answers in terms of whether Semenyo is a good long term pick. See, as of now, everyone is going to buy him because he's getting the points. People don't really look at the underlying data, right? When your average FPL manager is making transfer decisions, they will not come and they won't look at the XG and the XC and all of that. They will simply look, okay, I want this player, Evan Wilson, 18 points, bad pick. I want Semenyo, I will not look at his XG, I will not look at his expected assists. What will I look at? I will scroll, I will see, okay, 41 points, highest scoring player in the game, I will bring him in. And that's the thinking that people have. So you really can't change that. But I think it's important to just, do that little bit of thinking when you're trying to make decisions. So still not very keen in terms of getting Semenyo in. I'm in two minds. Uh, but you shouldn't be too in two minds about this guy, Senesi. I think he's just, what a player, man! What a player. He gets DefCon points for fun. Uh, got me 3 points last game despite conceding, uh, and I think he got a yellow card as well in that game. Yeah, he picked up a yellow card and still got me 3 points. And this game, Newcastle at home, tricky fixture, gets his DefCon, gets his clean sheet, gets a bonus, 9 points. Excellent pick. I think if you're wildcarding, Senesi should be the first player in your, even Anderson, right, from Fulham. He should also be a sure shot pick in your wild card, but especially Senesi. I think he's right up there as one of the best picks in the game, alongside Van Dijk, alongside Tarkowski. So yeah, if you don't have him in your team, just get him in, man. He's worth the money. He's going to do well. Uh, I think at the rate, right? He's I definitely see him ending up with 150, 160 points. That's the kind of value that he's offering at that price. It's crazy. Okay, so yeah, that's food for thought. uh, let's go to Arsenal first. So I think Raya is definitely an interesting shout. This is something that I have suggested in my previous podcasts as well. Why? Because a lot of Arsenal defenders, they are not very good for DefCon, and we have players like Senesi. We've got players like Van Dijk. We've got players like Anderson, Tarkowski, who are doing very good for Defcon. So, keeping that in mind, when there's enough value in the defense, there is a case to be had that you can just simply get David Raya in your team, and you take home those steady 6 pointers every now and then, right? I think that's a fair shout. So if you're on wildcard and if you look at Arsenal's fixtures, not just from a short-term perspective, but if you look at it from a mid-term perspective as well, and Arsenal being Arsenal, right? They're one of the top defenses in the world, not in the league. Uh, they are going to keep a lot of clean sheets. So without the DEFCON factor for their centre backs, for their full backs, I think Raya has a fair shout who will get you consistent returns. He'll not get you a big 12, 13, 15 pointer. Maybe if he saves a penalty, then yes. But he'll get you those 6 pointers, and that's a lot. It accumulates, right? It sounds boring, but it accumulates over a course of time. Personally, I have Petrovic in my team, so I'm not looking at David Raya at least right now. But yeah, maybe in the long term perspective, if I have a free transfer, then I feel that I'm very much satisfied with my team. Then maybe I'll look at taking Petrovic out for Raya in the future. But as of now, I'm not making that move. But if you're playing your wild card, I think Raya is definitely worth a shout. Okay, because the fixtures are so good, right? Now, I'll just take a sip of water before we discuss their attacking options. See this guy. My problem with Gyökeres is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I think most football fans. I'm not just talking about Arsenal fans. I think most football fans will agree that when they watched Gyökeres this season, he's not looked very convincing. So that has been my problem with Gyökeres. If you look at the City game, for example, right? I mean, he was nowhere to be found, really. Uh, I think at no point did it ever look like that Gyökeres will score against City. The same against Liverpool, same against Manchester United as well. Now, yes, he did end up scoring against Leeds and Nottingham Forest, but if you look at it in the larger scheme of things, you're looking at those 5 games that he's played so far, he has 3 blanks, a total of 22 points, uh, and just one double digit haul. Yes, he has penalties, but I'm just worried that going forward, right? Will he be secure for 90 minutes? This is something that I have discussed in the past as well. I don't think he's secure for 90 minutes. He has penalties, so that's a factor. If he's playing the easier games, he likely ends up scoring, so that's another positive as well. But I'm just thinking that are they really playing to Gyökeres, his strengths? And the answer is no. Now, let's say he has on an average 70 minutes. He has penalties. Is that enough to spend 9 million on him? That's the question. Uh, so that's a decision to make. But again, if you're on wildcard, I think he's definitely worth a pick. I think you pick Gyökeres and you figure the rest of it as it comes. That's the thinking. But at the same time, do you pick Gyökeres and you pick Bruno? I think bit of both could be too much. It was really just worth weighing your options. And I think Bruno, from a long term perspective, is a much better pick. Obviously, he has the penalties as well. He can get the DEFCON points every now and then. So I'm just thinking, right, that yes, Arsenal have great fixtures, and if you're picking Raya, you're you're locking a spot in your team, right? A thing that is in my mind. See, Saka is very expensive, so I don't really consider Bukayo Saka an option. Zubi is not an option. Rice is not an option for me. Eze, maybe he'll get some returns every now and then. Uh, my thinking is that the best thing that you can do is you probably ignore Gyökeres completely. You go with a cheaper striker, you get David Raya, and you pick an Arsenal defender in the hope that if Arsenal are scoring, see, Arsenal really play to their strengths as a team. They're very strong on set pieces, so they'll continue to score goals from corners and free kicks and all, right? So I think you just maybe spend that extra bit of money on Gabriel and double up with Gabriel and Raya, and I think those are the two Arsenal players that you look at, because I'm not very convinced with Gyökeres, right? I think there are some cheaper strikers who can do the job at that price. Saka is not that appealing anymore because he does not have the penalties. Yes, Saka coming back will make Arsenal look better, but a lot of times I feel it will happen that Arsenal are maybe leading 1-0, 2-0, and Gyökeres sort of comes off, and the goals will be shared. That's constantly been my thinking, that the goals will be shared at Arsenal, and Gyökeres does not really have the 90 minutes under his belt, especially with the fact that there's no striker backup at Arsenal anymore. So that's been a factor in my mind constantly. I think you can really pick any of these four Arsenal defenders that you see on the screen. I think you can go for Saliba, who's now back into the mix. You can go for Calafiori, but remember the risk with Calafiori and Ben White, with Julian Timber, is I feel that they are not very much secure from a long term, from mid term perspective as well, in terms of their minutes. With UCL around the corner, with Champions League obviously being a factor, I think it's just a matter of time, because Arsenal have signed him, Piero Hincapié. He was a very, very good defender before so I'm sure he's not going to be on the bench all the time. So there will be a I think it's just a matter of time before he sort of starts eating into the minutes of Calafiori or Julian Timber. Remember Mosquera in preseason, if I'm not wrong, he also played the right back role. So yes, even if Ben White is not featuring, I think Arteta still has that option to bench Julian Timber in some of these games. So that's going to be a factor as well. I think if you're really looking for an Arsenal defender, you simply have to spend that little bit extra money. Just get in Gabriel or get in Saliba. You get the secure, 90 minutes. At least you're getting starts out of them, right? Defcon you may or may not get, and you hopefully you got to hope that one of them scores a goal every now and then. So that's my thinking when it comes to Arsenal players. City. Before we move on, lastly to Spurs, just talking about City. I think, see, Haaland is a no-brainer. You need to have him in your team. Reinders is a no-brainer as well. At that price, I've always said that Reinders is a pricing mistake. He's playing that higher up, you know, higher up the pitch, the kind of role that he's got. So, he is definitely someone who is going to be, very much involved for City whenever they score. So these two picks are done. Now the question is, who is the third City pick? I have two or three options in my mind right now. Honestly, firstly, I will not go for a City defender purely because no matter how good, they have world class defender. Diash is world class, Guardiola is world class. The problem is that in FPL they're not really getting DEFCON points, so that's a problem. So I will not pick any City defender on wildcard at all. I think if you really want a third City player in your team, you can either go for Donnarumma. Very similar thinking, what I mentioned about David Raya, that that he's going to start all the games, and the defenders at City will not get DEFCON. So even though Donnarumma will not get a lot of, I would say, save points maybe, but he's quite clutch. So he immediately has improved City's clean sheet chances. So very similar to Raya, I would say. You bring him in and he can just get you those steady, 5, 6, 7, 8 points every now and then. I think that average of 6 points, getting the 6 points maybe once every 2 games. I think that's terrific. So just like Raya, so I think if you're on wildcard, you can definitely make this call of either picking Raya or picking Donnarumma. I think both are really worthy. Don't look at the price, 5.6 million. He's went up in price this morning, but I still think that's a very good price. He offers value, and you're getting a route, a secure, nailed on option for a City defense week in week out. I think that's terrific value. You should definitely go for him. So that's one. That's one. And listen, we are discussing this on the assumption that Haaland and Reinders are no-brainers when it comes to City picks in your team, right? So the third option, I feel one of the guys you could pick is Donnarumma. There are two more options that you can go for. This one is the one that I like the most. Jeremy Doku. Not a player that I've liked a lot in the past, but this season he seems to be a very different player, especially in the recent games with City sort of changing their tactics. Right, they are playing direct football now. I feel they're not playing that possession heavy football where they're keeping a lot of the ball. They're now finally playing to Haaland's strengths, and Doku is a very important, I would say, factor in all of this, right? With the way he's really just taking on defenders, setting up those chances. And if you watch the Champions League game against Napoli, he scored an excellent goal. So I think he's really growing into this new role, and I think the trend will continue for Jeremy Doku going forward as well. The fixtures are nice. The price is excellent. I think 6.4 million is a bargain if you're getting a City. Again, don't expect 90 minutes from him, but he will definitely start games. I think he'll start at least 4 out of 5 games going forward for City. He's the first choice left wing. Marmoush is now uh, unavailable for City. He's out with injury, so that really helps and a Doku from his minutes perspective as well. So I think my favorite preference, for City for the third pick in your wildcard team is Jeremy Doku. And if you want to just go for someone who's a bit more proven, as they like to call it, then you go for Phil Foden. Just like Doku, he now seems to be a part of Pep's plans, playing the number 10 role alongside, Tijani Reinders. And yeah, I think he looks good when City are playing that game where they are setting up against a low block, for example, right? When they're up against a team like Burnley, for example, I think that immediately the next game is very good for Foden. That is my feeling. And just like Doku, I don't expect him to play 90 minutes in all the games. I think once the job is done, you look at 60, 70 minutes, but you got to hope that by the time, obviously with Haaland being on the pitch, you probably hope that Foden or Doku have picked up an assist or a goal, and that's job well done. So don't expect a lot, and I think Foden or Doku will likely end up matching each other in terms of attacking return. So just for the fact that 1.6 million cheaper, right? The prices are different because Foden is 8 million and Doku 6.4. I think that makes for me Doku a better pick for that third spot in your wildcard team. Lastly, before I just pick a wildcard uh, draft for those who want a wildcard draft, because I get a lot of DMs from my followers, asking me what the ideal wildcard draft would look like, and I've responded to some of them as well. It becomes very difficult. So what I'm going to do is live on the stream itself. I'll just try to set up what, in my opinion, is the ideal, the optimal wildcard team. Before we do that, just a quick word on Spurs. Yeah, like I said, that from a short term perspective, I like the next two fixtures, and I've constantly been thinking of this guy out here, Richarlison. He started off the season with a bang, like he got 2 goals against Burnley at home, got an assist against Man City, didn't do much against Bournemouth. Had he was benched for that West Ham game, but now back on the starting 11 against Brighton, and he did end up scoring as well. So 3 goals and 1 assist for him in 4 starts, I think, this season. Yeah, and that's very decent. So he's a man who's constantly been in my thinking because Solanke will be out for a while. Kolomoani is not a factor at this moment. Uh, Thomas Frank did try the Matthias Tell experiment against West Ham, and it did not work out. Right, he was rubbish in that game, and I think he realizes that Richarlison is definitely a better player. Uh, so I'm just thinking for the next 2 weeks, I think Richarlison is worth a punt. So I really like him, and especially the Wolves game. Right, Wolves are rubbish. We saw even Calvert Lewin ended up doing well against Wolves last week. Got a goal, got an assist. I'm just thinking that he could be worth a punt for game week 6 and 7, and maybe who knows if he ends up keeping the spot. If I'm confident that yes, Richarlison will keep a spot uh, even after Solanke coming back, then who knows? I may end up giving him the Villa game and the Everton game as well. So, but then after that, from game week 10 onwards, he's a hard sell. I don't want him in my team anymore. So I'm just thinking for the next 2 or 4 fixtures. If you're on your wild card, I think Richarlison is worth a shout. I think Kudus is worth a shout as well. My only problem with the likes of Kudus and Javi is that they're not really attacking from a goal scoring perspective. So I look at them as creative players, especially Kudus, right? Very good player in real life, but he is more of a creative player. So I'm just thinking, is Brennan Johnson in the scheme of things anymore? He's just been making so I don't. I'm just looking at anyone who could be a threat to Richarlison's minutes, and I don't really see anyone that stands out. So I'm just thinking that Richarlison could be the answer. This Matthias Tell, who started the West Ham game, but he didn't feature against Brighton at all. So I don't really think he is a threat. I think Thomas Frank learned his lesson after giving him that West Ham game. That Richarlison is definitely the better pick. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to Richarlison. If you are on wildcard, give him a shot, right? If you don't want to go for someone like a DCL or Ivan Nilsson, who doesn't seem like he's getting away, putting away a lot of shots, I think Richarlison could be a good pick. See, not very bad underlying data as well. He got some good chances against Burnley, good chances against Brighton as well, and he's really playing that box hogging role, right, where he's constantly in and around the box. So he's very selfish by nature as well. So that could be a factor. Uh, I'm very interested to see that if Spurs get a penalty, will Richarlison take it? I have a feeling he will take the pens if uh, Spurs end up getting a penalty. So if you're on wildcard, I think you should definitely punt on him. He's definitely worth it. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, right? I mean, these are the points that I really wanted to sort of discuss. Especially with the wildcard perspective. While we are at it, before we look at my bus team and just take you through my game week 6 team and discuss what the captaincy will be, and obviously the big talking point about Haaland being the triple captaincy favorite. We'll also talk about that. But yeah, just before this, so if I were to wildcard this week, remember I'm not playing my wildcard. I've already played it. But if I were to wildcard, I'll probably go with a similar structure. So that will be my thinking. And the 4 or 5 players I'll definitely have on my wildcard are Haaland, Salah, Bruno, and Van Dijk. I will not compromise on these players. To me, these 4 players are a set and forget for the rest of the season. I'm not going to touch them. I'm very confident that they will keep getting me those returns. And I also get the captaincy cushion by having both Salah and Haaland. I'll repeat it. It's something that I've always repeated in my podcast. You need to go for Salah and Haaland to give you the captaincy cushion, especially because we are in a season where we have so many good cut price options. Defcon is now a factor, so it's not really a problem affording them, all of them in the team. So let's just try to put together a wildcard team. So I'll just take out the players that I don't think should be in the wildcard team. For example, so this is another thing. See, right now in my team currently, I have two 4 million defenders. If I was to play the wildcard, I will not have two. Even though Goodmanson has done well, I feel there's just so many good defensive options. I don't see the point in picking Goodmanson at 4 million. So I'll definitely take him off. I will not have Van de Ven either, so we will take him off as well. I'll definitely keep Van Dijk. I'll definitely keep Senesi. So let's just start building the wildcard team. Right? So let's start with the big boys. I'll have Van Dijk in there. I'll probably get Gabriel, and we'll also keep an eye on the money in the bank, right? because you don't want to go over budget. So I'm picking a team that really fits your budget as well. Because I spoke so extensively about Richarlison. See, it will be a shame if I talk so much about a player and then I don't back it up, right? So if I were to play the wild card, I'll definitely be a little brave. See, you just get 38 game weeks in a season, right? And whether you finish top 10k or top 20k, top 500k, top 1 million, it doesn't matter if you're not willing at all. So always, this has always been my thinking. Always pick players, always pick teams, always make moves, thinking you may not end up winning it all, but always play thinking that I am playing for that number one spot. It may look unrealistic, maybe you're 300, 400, 500 points away, maybe you're 10 points away. Always play with that mindset. So that's always what my thinking has been. So keeping that in mind, I feel this is a chance for anyone who's on a wild card to really make this move. So I think you have to be brave and go for someone like Richarlison. I'm just seeing what other moves can you make. So right now we've got 10.4 million in the bank, and you need to pick one defender and one forward. Now see, there are a few options over here, right? You can upgrade. So in just talking from wildcard perspective, you can upgrade Petrovic to Raya, but I also feel Petrovic is a fine shout on a wildcard because he's doing well. Tottenham are sorry, Bournemouth are keeping those clean sheets every now and then. What I'll also do, if I was on wildcard, just to be that little bit adventurous, I'll go with three Man City attackers. And the one who's cheaper than Foden. So we've got Doku in there, right? Now you got 9.5 million, and we have to pick a forward, and we have to pick a defender in there. 9.5. The question here, the reason why I have paused is that one option is that you see the striker spot over here where I had a 4.5 million forward, which is basically a dead spot. You either take that approach where you just leave that spot as it is. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that. You see, the other option is there's a 5 million forward at Burnley, like I told you earlier. You can go for Lyle Foster. I'm just trying to scroll down. See, here he is. But see, the fixtures are not really good, and Burnley don't look like, um, objectively speaking, they're the worst team in the league, right? So it doesn't make sense spending that point 0.5. But on the other hand, the plus side when you get someone like him is that you're spending that extra point 0.5 million, but he's a player that you can rely on if there is a benching or something, right? He will play every week for Burnley, so that's a decision that you have to make. Are there any other 5 million forwards that are really playing? Let's just put a filter, right? I mean, we've got such a nice FPL website to use. See, not really. The other thing is that you can just go for my uh, Gui, whatever, however you pronounce his name. Save that little bit of money. So I'll take that approach, right? Because he's 4.3, and I think at some point he will be an option. I think if you're on wildcard, because he's someone who can potentially be a starter in the future, all right, uh, and you anyway look at it as a dead spot, so that really helps you save some money. So you just go with him as your as a dead spot, I would like to call it, for the bench. And then out here, I think because we've spoken so much about the DEFCON, defenders, right? You just simply go for Anderson, and that still leaves you with zero point 0.7 million in the bank. So tomorrow, let's say that you want to move on a Doku to maybe an Endai or 7 million midfielder in the future. You can do that. You can move on Richarlison for an Evan Nilsson or someone else in the you know down the line. So, yeah, this could be a viable pick. And what you're doing here is at the same time, see, another interesting aspect here is the kind of defenders that I'm picking on this wildcard draft, right? Are the kind of defenders that you can pretty much play every week. So you're looking at a four at the back option, in fact, here, right? With someone like an Anderson and Van Dijk and Gabriel and Senesi. That means that uh, going forward, if you don't like Doku, for example, in a week, you don't have to immediately take him out because then suddenly you have Caicedo who can be first on your bench. So you really have that cushion where uh, you've got obviously you've got Mark Gui who's going to be last on the bench. Second on the bench can probably be Steve here, the 4.0 million defender, and first on the bench every week as a nice cushion can be Caicedo. If you want to invest, let's say if you want to take it a step further, you really want Raya in your team, then you can just play a 4-4-2 with Salah, Reinders, Bruno, and Doku. Take Caicedo out for a 4.5 million midfielder, which is this guy, King, right? And that leaves you with 1.7 million in the bank. Using that, you can upgrade Henderson to maybe a Guardiola if you like. You can upgrade uh, Petrovic to Raya if you really fancy it. So just think from that perspective, or you can just leave that 1.7 million in the bank, and in the future you can just take out Richarlison and get someone else. You can take out Doku and just if you are really the kind of uh, manager who likes to play it safe and you're like, no, Doku is flying and his ownership is so high and I'm so scared of not having him, you just take Doku. Instead of Doku, you can go for Semenyo in your team, and that still gives you a nice balance, I would say, overall. This is like a 4-4-2 draft. So before this, I think we had more of a hybrid where you can just do a lot of rotation. You've got like, yeah, I think this one is decent as well. You've got a nice Arsenal defender in there. You've got Van Dijk in there. Another, of course, if you want to just really target Arsenal's defender, you can also remove Van Dijk and you can double up with Calafiori or Saliba, and that will give you two Arsenal defenders. Personally, I want to keep Van Dijk in my team. I think I really like him. I think he's a long-term pick. Like I mentioned before, I don't want to touch him. He's always going to be in my team. But if you're on wildcard and if you want to take that different route, then it's more than okay if you take Van Dijk out and you double up on Arsenal defenders. Because remember, in the draft that I am suggesting, Gyökeres is not in the draft, right? So, but you still get a really strong team overall. You get two City attackers, you get an Arsenal defender, you get very strong defense. All of them will do really good in terms of DEFCON. You've got penalty takers in Haaland, potentially Richarlison as well. You've got Salah who's on pens. You've got Bruno who's on pens. Reinders not on pens, but he doesn't have to be because he's so cheap and he'll always do well for you if you just leave him in your team. And obviously, Semenyo is someone who could be on the pens from a long-term perspective as well. So yeah, that's the thinking. There's still enough in the bank. There's like zero point 0.4 million in the bank, and that can help you upgrade. Maybe if Evan Nelson is looking good going forward, or if you just want to have Evan Nelson in your team right away, you can just upgrade Richarlison to Evan Nelson, right from the word go. But then you will have to take Petrovic out for another keeper because remember you can't have four players from Bournemouth if you are going with Evan Nelson as your striker. So I think that will be quite interesting as well. So this is a very defense heavy. This is the kind of draft that I like. If you are brave enough to go with Richarlison in your team, I'll also give you another, option where if you just want to keep it simple, and you're going with Salah and Haaland in your team, and you like the kind of structure that I have, all you can do is you can simply get rid of. I'll just. So if you really want Gyökeres in your team, right? So what I'll probably do is I've just added Gyökeres in there. I think I'll make very similar moves, to be honest, but then I'll be forced to have two 4.0 million defenders on the wildcard, and I don't see how uh, you know that really benefits your team. Right? I don't think Gyökeres is worth that. Or the other option is you sacrifice Bruno and you pick Semenyo in your team, because having Gyökeres along with Haaland, Salah, Bruno, Van Dijk will be a bit too much. So that will be a little difficult, to sort of just fit them all in. Uh, that's the challenge, right? Also, because we're doing the stream and we're discussing wildcard, just apart from my perspective of having, because this is what all content creators are suggesting. So if we take, really go deep into that, and with the assumption that we're taking Salah out, so let's say you're going with your wildcard team and Salah is not in your team, right? We'll keep it simple. This is I'm going with the herd mentality, right? Here. So Salah goes out, Semenyo comes in, you've got Haaland in your team, you've got Gyökeres in your team. Now suddenly you have so much money in the bank to play around with, right? We'll do the same thing for the third striker spot, I would say. We'll get Mark, Gui, whatever in there. This is more like a 3-5-2-4-4-2 draft again, but now we have a lot of money in the bank to play around. And see, there's so much you can do. You can take Goodmanson out. You can take Van de Ven out. Let me see. Just this will be like, I mean, if I were to take Salah out, this will be my dream draft, I would say, because then I'll really go aggressive. And I know a lot of people won't like this, but I'll go double Arsenal defense. Okay, and I still have a lot of money in the bank, so I'll go double Arsenal defense. I'll probably take Petrovic out. And this is purely from wildcard, right? This is what my ideal wildcard would look like if I were to not go with my strategy of Salah and Haaland. Because remember, not everything can be from my perspective, right? There are people who don't want to have Salah in the team. They're playing the wildcard, they just want to get Haaland. So, just from that perspective, I'll go for Donnarumma, right? We've still got 3.5 million in the bank, right? There's just so much money if you take Salah out. So there's Bruno, there's Reinders, there's Menio. I think I'll still keep Caicedo. Honestly, even if I was wildcarding. See, now with this 3.5, you can do so many things. You can upgrade, Reinders. But see, this is my problem with taking Salah out, right? I don't really see a lot of defenders who I feel are worth the price tag. Maybe Doku or Foden. See, Doku is not very expensive as well, right? So maybe you go for Kudus. No one really stands out to me. That's exactly my problem. Maybe and die. Dewsbury Hall, I don't like him too much. Yeah, I think Doku would be, but then if you go for Donnarumma, you're looking at three City players already. Then you have to, go back to Petrovic in that case, right? So, so we are improvising, right? We are just doing everything real time. So you take Anderson out, pick Doku. Don't go on Doku's price tag. They price it at 6.4, but the kind of role that he's playing right now, he is playing like an 8.59 million uh, player. So don't go on his price. So see, this is what ideally I would, really, this is what my team would look like, honestly. If I were to take Salah out, of course, and this still gives you, I think, a good 3.7 million in the bank. So tomorrow, let's say if you want to just take, Doku out, yeah, you can do that. You can easily do that. Or the other option is you just keep. But see, doing this, leads to a benching headache. I'm just thinking that you make all these picks and you probably take Mark Gui out for Richarlison, because with the kind of money that we have in the bank, that could be possible. But then you're really inviting benching headache, because then do you want to bench Anderson and Caicedo all the time, right? That's asking for trouble, but that can still be done. So I think that would be my preference if I were to sell Mo Salah, but I don't really want to do that. Uh, Now that we've discussed the wildcards, and I'll tell you why I don't want to sell Mo Salah. See, a lot has been discussed about Salah, about how he's playing that withdrawn role, but now things have changed. We saw it in the Atletico game, we saw it in the Everton game as well. Even though he got just an assist, and the fact that it was a derby, right, not a very straightforward game. Uh, Salah is now coming inside, right, and just look at his full profile. So I've always liked, captaining Salah in away games. So even if you go back to his numbers from last season, Salah normally tends to haul when he's playing away from home. And I mentioned at the start of the podcast that I feel that whenever I watch Palace, I feel they look very leggy, and the fact that they are not a very functional side, that the results have not been too bad, honestly. But if you just look at the team, right, they have Mateta, Kamada, and the new boy Pino, is it? Who's now playing up front. So there's lack of creativity, and I just feel that the kind of game that the Palace matchup will really benefit Salah is what my thinking is, because Palace, now if you look at it from Palace's perspective, they don't look at themselves as just another team. If you look at their manager, Glasner as well, there'll be this factor where they think that we're not going to sit back, right? So I think, I don't know how that will work out for Liverpool, whether they win, whether they don't win. I think there could be goals in that game. That is my thinking, and I am not sure if Palace will score those goals, but I know for a fact that I used to follow the strategy a lot when years back. I don't know if you've played FPL long enough. When Alexis Sanchez, remember that there was this one season where he was just scoring left, right, and center every week. Okay, and he used to do well, particularly in the away games, because in the away games, the teams would really come and try to attack Arsenal, and that's good news if you're a player like Sanchez, like he was back then, or even Salah, right now, or any decent attacker who, especially who's an inside forward who really likes to attack those half space channels. I think that's good news. So that's my thinking with Mo Salah. So yes, obviously, Haaland is Haaland, and I am completely backing him to score against Burnley once again. And if you have a triple captain, I know he's going to be a very popular triple captain as well. And he'll do well, right? He'll do well for you. He'll get you goals. Hopefully, he gives you 2, 3 goals. But I'm just thinking that because I have this luxury where I have both Salah and Haaland in my team. I'm very much tempted, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it, right? So if you followed my episodes before, it's not like I say something and I end up taking the safe option in the end. No, that's not the kind of an FPL manager that I am. So I'm pretty certain with just the dynamics that I've spoken about and my point of view about Palace not being a very robust side, and coupled with the fact that I like the fact that Salah is a midfielder, so he gets an extra point for every goal that he scores. uh, I think I'm backing Salah to really go big in this game. So if you look at Mo Salah's history so far this season, 8 points, 5 points, 3 points, 9 points, 5 points. He's not really went big in any of the games. And if you followed Salah, right? Salah by nature, he's a 90-minute man. He's always been a selfish player, right? The numbers matter a lot to him, and he has been very vocal about this in the past. I think this is the game, right? Just before Liverpool play Chelsea and United, I'm expecting Salah to go big in the Palace game. So that is my thinking. So which is why I've always been keen on the Salah and Haaland draft, and everyone is now going to wildcard Salah out, and that is completely fair because they want Haaland. But I cannot look past the fact that this week, with the things that I've just spoken about, with the whole dynamic, and with the fact that Palace have constantly been playing 2 games a week, I feel the squad is very thin. It's not really up to the mark. Uh, I think this is going to be a great game for Mo Salah, and yes, Haaland will also do well. In any other universe, right, I would have just captained Haaland, just kept it simple. But because I have the luxury of where I own both, I think I want to go for Mo Salah, right? I have that luxury and I have that cushion as well. That if, like I always say, if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world because I still have both of them in my team. So if I'm not captaining Haaland, I still have him in my team. I'll get those points. It's not the end of the world for me, and I'll still be happy for everyone who's triple captaining him and captaining him, of course. But my instinct, my thoughts, my opinions, my views. Not just this week, in the last week's pod as well, I spoke about this, that if you're selling Salah, be careful because he can really go big in that Palace game, and I still stand by it. So uh, I'm very much certain about captaining Salah. So this is what my game week 6 bus team looks like right now. I've got Petrovic in goal. I've got Van de Ven, Van Dijk, Senesi in defense. I've got Elliot Anderson, Reinders, Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah captain, Caicedo in midfield. The 2 strikers I have are Hugo Ekitike and Haaland vice captain. On the bench, hopefully I don't need the bench, but I've got Dubravka, I've got Steve, I've got Goodmanson, I've got Krupi Jr., who's a dead spot in there. Yet to make my transfers, I have 1.5 million in the bank. So I'll just go back to the transfer page. Ekitike, it's such a shame because I really, really like him as a player. I think he's been fantastic. But unfortunately, with the amount of money that Liverpool have spent on Isak, I think it's inevitable that he will start sooner rather than later. Uh, I think Ekiteke was quite lucky that he got the Everton game, but I don't see how long this will last. So I am thinking of an exit plan for Ekitike, which means I won't have 3 Liverpool players. I'll just have two. Definitely, I'm not getting rid of Salah or Van Dijk. So yeah, that's my thinking. The plan will be from my my personal team, the team that you see on the screen right now. I'm sure this will not be my team uh, by deadline. The captain will be the same, but I definitely see myself making at least one move. I'll take Ekiteke out and maybe get in an Evan Wilson. We discussed DCL, Richarlison, so I'll just have to ponder a lot, with these points. But Ekitike is definitely going out. I really like Doku, for my team as well. But the question is, right, see the five midfielders that I've got, they're doing well. I'm not really sure who to take out. I can't take out Salah. I can't take out Bruno. I cannot take out, Reinders as well. So just is something that I will, discuss with myself, right? I'll just think about it. So a bit here and there. But yeah, Ekiteki has to go out. I'm also not sure of Van Diven, but like I said, he's playing Wolves at home, so I have to give him that fixture, where I hope that even though he's not getting me Defcon, he at least gives me that clean sheet point, and hopefully Spurs end up keeping clean sheet in that game. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We have covered a few points. We've gone through some, wildcard live tinkering. I would, as I would like to say, in terms of just looking at different wildcard combinations and my thinking, behind them. And yeah, this week again we are doing something a little different. If you follow my content, I always like to look for opportunities, because like I say, even though I got a big jump in terms of my overall ranking this week, I'm up to 292 296k right now. But that's not enough. I'm constantly thinking of making moves that really help me win it all. That is always my thinking, and I will never change that. If people laugh about it, it's okay. We don't care. We are in it to win it, and if we don't win it, that's still okay. It's not the end of the world. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Make sure you like this video. If you have any feedback, drop them in the comments below. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the replies as well, or you can reach out to me on my X Twitter handle, that is Sayed Zish. And yeah, great chatting with you. Hopefully, you have a great week. If you're captaining Haaland, good luck. If you're playing a wild card, good luck. If you're triple captaining Haaland, good luck. And I will see you next week. Until then, it's a goodbye.